Hello, everybody. I'm going to start off with introducing myself. I'm one of I guess, the moderator here, since this is a conversation between Charlie and Joby. And one of the reasons why we're doing this is because it's Alopecia Awareness Month, but more importantly is Alopecia Awareness Day, September 17. And it's something that has been initiated by our partners over at the National Alopecia Areata Foundation. There's the theme for the month is Alopecia All-Star, which Charlie, you've shared some videos already about people sharing who their All-Star is. And this is just another campaign or another reason to increase awareness for Alopecia Areata and those communities across the nation. So my name is Rob Villanueva. I'm Charlie's older brother. I have the good fortune of being his brother and perking off all his goodies. And the gentleman, I don't know if you required introduction, Charlie, but feel free to introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce Mr. Dr. John here.
Charlie Villanueva. For those that don't know me, former NBA player, turned into an entrepreneur. Got a lot of stuff going on, and some of the stuff that I'm excited to talk to you guys about later on.
All right, cool, Charlie. Mr. Jobby John, Dr. John, I like to refer to him as. Feel free to introduce yourself, your title, your background, and how we're all here.
Absolutely, yeah. Charlie doesn't need any introductions. He's pretty famous everywhere.
Wait. Sorry to cut you off. Can you get closer to the phone so the audio is better?
Oh, me? Yeah.
Yeah, just get a little closer. So, yeah, that's a little better.
Okay. Well, my name is Jobby John. I'm a pharmacist by trade. I live in Austin, Texas. Went to the University of Texas here and got my doctorate in pharmacy in 2013. Since then, I've been in practice, owned a few pharmacies, specialized in personalized medications by compounding prescriptions to fit people's needs. That's what I've done for the last decade. I'm an alopecia warrior, and that's how me and Charlie and Rob got connected. And I'm very excited to be here and talk about my experience with alopecia areata and how we're helping people.
Yeah, I appreciate your time and jumping in here with us. Honestly, with this call, like when we were originally talking about it, I want it to be casual. I want it to be, something that we're already boys as it is, right? So this is a casual conversation, nothing necessarily structured in the sense that, we have to follow certain scripts. So if we fall a little bit off tangent here, like it's okay. And I want it to be comfortable and for the listeners, more importantly for the listeners to learn about what alopecia is and like the different types. And we wanted two different perspectives. You're both actually living with it. I don't know if I can share that, if you don't mind me sharing that, Dr. John, but like you're not only a doctor and a specialist in this field, but you're also living with it. You have alopecia areata. And Charlie has a more severe case of alopecia areata, which is alopecia universal, where it's complete hair to toe and doesn't have one single hair in his body. No, not in his ears, not in his nose, no eyelash, no pubes, which I always get jealous about. But but there are differences, right? And like before we start getting into some of those medical differences, maybe we can share like your story on how you got alopecia. Charlie, you can start off with how you got alopecia and like maybe share a little bit of how it has defined you today.
I was diagnosed with alopecia. Well, first of all, I started getting like this bald spot, the size of a dime behind my head. Didn't think too much of it. Didn't know what it was. My hair didn't grow there for some reason, some odd reason. So I was like, okay. And then as time went on, it started gradually getting bigger and it started getting worse. And now it's like, okay, now it caught, my mom's attention and my attention as well. It was like, okay, we got to go see a doctor. And we went and saw a doctor, and then that's when they told us that alopecia. At that moment, I was diagnosed with alopecia. I had no idea what alopecia was, no family history of anyone in my family with alopecia. And then that's when my journey began, really, man. It took about a year because it gradually kept getting worse. And it took about a year to completely fall off. on my scalp, and then I was losing on my eyebrows and my eyelashes. This is about, roughly about 11 years old now. And then by the age of 12, I completely didn't have no hair anywhere.
So I'm sorry to pause you there, but when you said it completely like no hair, like did it like fall off in one moment or did it fall off over time?
No, it was over time. It was a very slow process. It was a very slow process. It took about a year, I would say, because the spots were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I would shave it. I would shave my head so you really can't see it. And then I'll find a new spot, and then another spot, and then another spot, and then to the point where it just was complete body hair loss. So for me, it took about a year for it to completely fall off.
Mm. Did you at that moment? Did you know like? Do you know like what the next level was from, like, let's say this alopecia areata, which is like you were thinking about these spots, but were you aware that, oh no, like I'm on the verge of losing it all? I know you're an adolescent,
I'm 10, 11 years old, 12 years old. I was more, to be honest, I was more worried about losing my eyebrows more than anything. Because I feel like the fact that and then I started playing basketball, even though it's very rare that you see, a bald-headed kid at 11 years old, but to me, it was more acceptable because you had, at that time, you got the greats, Michael Jordan playing, you got all these guys, athletes that are bald-headed and very successful. So that's kind of why I put all my energy towards. But I was scared, man. I was super scared, super depressed. Didn't look people in the eye. I remember in school, my mom had to come up to school because in school there was no hat policy. So
this is public school in New York. You couldn't wear a hat.
New York, and my mom had to talk to the principal, tell him about my condition. But now they allowed me to wear a hat. But now I'm the only kid wearing a hat. So it's like, why is he wearing a hat? So it was like, I'm thinking I'm good. But then it's like, but why is that kid wearing a hat? And it's okay for him to wear a hat. So it kind of brought more attention towards me, and which I was trying to like stay away, bro. Like I didn't want no attention. And it didn't help that I was growing too. I had a major growth spurt, especially in high school. So I'm super tall. And lost all my hair, my facial hair. Don't have no hair in my eyebrows, eyelashes, and my head, and I'm trying to hide it. So it was difficult. It was difficult, and I was not comfortable in my own skin. And to me, that's one of the worst feelings in the world, man. Is when you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't like what you see in return.
Mm. True. No, thank you for sharing that. And I know a lot of this, but I wanted you to reiterate for the listeners, because it's like, everyone has their own walks of life and their own paths to how they got their alopecia and how they're still either dealing with it or have dealt with it. And every story is different, but like one thing usually fundamentally ties it all together, where like you look at yourself in the mirror, like you said, and you don't like who you see because something was robbed from you. And Dr. John, I would love for you to describe your journey to alopecia and when you first noticed it, how you adopted to it, but more so like, did alopecia happen for you before medical school, or was that what inspired you to learn about the science and the medicine?
No. So I went to pharmacy school, right? So this was way after that. So my experience with the alopecia area was completely different. Charlie went through it as a growing adolescent, which is where it usually pops up, especially if you have universalis or totalis, which is a completely different spectrum, and the emotion that comes with that, and being a kid and growing up so different than everybody else in school it's wild. And that's a big part of how you treat it now. Is you have to treat the mental side more than the actual physical side because of what it does to a person. My personal experience with alopecia areata started about 2.5 years ago when I started experiencing bald patches in my beard. And I've always had a full beard like this. And for some random reason, I started getting a bald patch, and it's very obvious when you have no hair and it gets down to your skin, and it's just like an oval shaped coin size like bald patch. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I've had normal hair all my life, so it's kind of the opposite. It's like you're looking at yourself in the mirror. It's like, what is going on? And
sorry to cut you off. At this time, did you know what alopecia really was, or have you heard of the term?
Not really. I mean, obviously, I've heard of the term because alopecia is like a overarching nomenclature used for hair loss in general, right? So alopecia, yeah, but alopecia areata, not really. I didn't really know much about it. I knew the condition existed, but I thought it was more of a situation like yours. Totalis universalis, where you lose all your hair. I never really knew enough about it to where it could be bald spots that come and go, and it could be anywhere on your body, scalp or face, right? So that was a learning curve for me. I dived into it, and I wanted to figure out what was causing this and how to best treat it. And that's kind of how I started my journey and started my startup, Nimbus Healthcare, right? So that's kind of what led me to do that. And my personal experience was there was no real good treatment on the market that could address the issue I was having. And, I was telling you earlier, my entire practice is making drugs, like from scratch, compounding prescriptions. So there was not one drug that existed on the market at the time that could resolve my issues. And we could talk about that later on treatments and what exists out there. But yeah, that was my personal experience. I started my beard. Yeah, I treated it 2 to 3 months. My full beard came back. It was on the left side. And then, 6 months later, I got a patch on my right side, or this side right here, the left side, bald spot just coming up out of nowhere. It starts really small, then it gets gradually bigger as time goes by, and then it turns into like a circular spot. Treated it the same way that I treated the bald spot that I had in my beard. 2, 3 months, it's gone. I was good for another year, and then now I have another spot that popped up about 2 months ago. That's here.
Can you get a little closer? Can you get a little closer to the phone?
Very obvious, but you can kind of see it here. It's like a bald spot right there.
Oh, yeah, we see that. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's crazy because here you are going to be a pharmacist, right, and open up your own practice, and like you're experiencing this, and it's like it makes me think back to like what causes the alopecia. I know there's no true definition. I mean, let's enlighten me, but I know there's no true definition on what causes alopecia. People and medical industries have referred it to being hereditary, to being tied to hormonal changes, to different medical conditions, or just a normal part of aging. But like, and even stress is something that has tied to the cause of alopecia. But is there a defined like conclusion on what causes alopecia?
Yeah, so alopecia is, like I was saying earlier, is a broad term, right? Alopecia in general, medically speaking, is whenever the amount of hair that you have growing is less than what you're losing. That leads thinning and balding, basically. And that happens over a period of time, like you see in male pattern baldness, or very rapidly, like you see in alopecia areata.
So that's a bit of a good point, because a lot of people say alopecia, and some people say alopecia areata, and there is a difference. And I want to look up, like when you look up the like dictionary reason, what is, like when you define alopecia, I'm going on Google right now, and alopecia is described as the partial or complete absence of hair from areas of the body where it normally grows. And then it says baldness. So like alopecia is hair loss, is baldness. But then when you look up the WebMD version of what is alopecia, it says alopecia areata is an autoimmune disorder that causes your hair to come out, often in clumps, the size and shape of a quarter. The amount of hair loss is different for everyone. Some people lose it only in a few spots. So alopecia areata is very specific to being an autoimmune disorder that causes these patches randomly. And then alopecia is just hair loss. But would you say alopecia is also an autoimmune disorder?
No, I would look at it this way. Alopecia is the term you use for hair loss in general. It could be androgenic alopecia, which is male pattern or female pattern baldness that you typically see, that you're used to, where it's receding hairline and a thinning crown, right? That's what we usually see. Female pattern baldness also falls under androgenic alopecia, and that's usually hormonal in nature. That's a hormonal thing, and we can discuss that later when we talk about treatments and whatnot. But that's hair loss in general is termed as alopecia. We talked about androgenic alopecia, which is hormonal. Alopecia areata, if you want to call it the second one, is autoimmune. And that's when your body's own immune cells start infiltrating the hair follicles and killing them off. And that whole etiology of why that happens is still not really completely understood, unfortunately. Researchers are working really hard at it. There's a new drug that came on the market this year that's FDA approved for treating it. So there's a lot of research being done in that area. But as far as we can tell, it's two things. There is a genetic predisposition for it, and second thing is that there could be environmental factors that cause it as well. And then there's more alopecia types like telogen effluvium, which is a seasonal hair loss, like you're losing hair loss because of stress or like big life changes or illness. So there's different types of alopecia out there that they're categorized, but alopecia is basically the overarching term we use for hair loss.
Yeah, you brought up a good point about this new treatment that was approved by the FDA, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, like I was Googling this up, and like alopecia areata has been in existence for over the last like 3,500 years, but like the investigation and the advanced knowledge that we've had for alopecia has really accelerated over the last 30 years. And this FDA approved treatment, it's like, describe how monumental that is, because like we haven't had that in over the last few decades.
Yeah, and I've got, so basically, and this is
there might be some mixed feelings in there.
These are where these kind of talks are good, right? Where we're talking real talk, right? So the FDA approved drug is by Eli Lilly. It's called what's it called? Illuminated. It's a baricitinib is the actual generic for it, but
is it a cream? Is it a cream or like an inject or pill?
It's an oral pill, and it's Olumiant. Olumiant is the drug, what it's called. Baricitinib is what the generic name for it is, but it's an oral pill you take. But what it does is the drug was actually came out before for rheumatoid arthritis. And it's in a class of drugs called JAK inhibitors, JAK inhibitors. And JAK is basically a kinase. It's a chemical messenger that you have in your body. And we talked about how in alopecia areata, your body's immune cells are going to your hair follicle bulb and attacking it, right? That's what's causing your hair to fall out and not really regrow for a while. So the concept is if you can block the messengers that lead to the immune cells kind of going to that area, then you can prevent that from happening. So in universalis and totalis, it's working on a systemic level. So that's where it's been helpful. You can see a regrowth of hair, but it comes with its own side effects because you're affecting your entire immune system and you're taking it orally, right? So I would suggest it unless it's something, if it's severe alopecia and you can actually get good results from it by doing it, and you can withstand the side effect profile.
Interesting. Yeah, it's by the way, I know our listeners right now may have tons of questions, so let's save the questions to the end. You can also submit your questions on the bottom. There's a little tab where you can hit the plus button and submit your questions, and we can hopefully have some time to go at the end, because we had a hard cutoff at 4:30. But like if we can buy an extra few minutes, are you guys good on your end just in case?
Now we keep it going.
Yeah, and Dr. John, if you can get a little closer, because like the echo of the room, I just want to make sure we capture all the audio there. So we talked about the definition and the difference between alopecia and alopecia areata, but like I'm curious to see like how do you define it with your own personal journeys? Like one of the things that Charlie and I had worked on previously, and we're still working on, was a film called What is Alopecia? And in the film, we focus on a number of different subjects, from a mom of two, a jiu-jitsu, young lady that's a champion, there's a number of different individuals that have different
Stories.
different experiences with their alopecia, but they all define it differently. But they had some sort of creative outlet that help them through that journey. So I'm curious for you, like, how would you define how alopecia has made you? I mean, it's a part of you, right? You live it, you breathe it every day. And Charlie, you have a more severe case of it because now you've lost everything. There's no eyebrows. You could easily identify, like Jobby can kind of blend in there, right? Because, he's got a full Blair, but he has the patches. But
Wear a cap and nobody can tell, right? Or
Yeah.
I could get by shading and whatnot, and it's not as noticeable. But Charlie,
Yeah, I'm done.
yeah. But I'm curious, like, how does that define you? And I don't know if Charlie, you spent 11 years in the NBA. Like, can you contribute alopecia to being a part of that success?
100%. Alopecia is what made me, right? So without alopecia, that's why I call it a blessing in disguise, because without alopecia, I wouldn't be the person I am today or the player that I was. Because in between those lines, mind you, when I was a kid, I didn't feel comfortable in my skin, right? But I needed something to kind of take away this pain. And lo and behold, there was a basketball. And in between those lines, I was growing too, and I was pretty good at basketball. And in between those lines, I just felt like a normal kid. And I felt like people weren't looking at me as, oh, the kid doesn't have any eyebrows, or, oh, the kid, looks kind of different. It was more like, oh, the kid can play. The ball-headed kid can hoop. So I just gravitated to that and kind of used basketball as a tool to kind of overcome it. And as status or fame, whatever you want to call it, as progressed, as I kept getting better at the sport, now I'm becoming, featured in magazines. I'm being seen on TV now. Now I'm having this platform, and now it's like I'm out there now. There's no hiding it now. I'm out there. So, and then when I was about in college, I say about 18, 19 years old, that's how I got introduced to the National Alopecia Areata Foundation. And then started realizing, like, oh, there's more people like me out there. Like, I really didn't, I thought it was me. I thought I was the only one out there because I didn't know anybody in my family. I didn't have nobody to look up to. It just, to me, it was just, I'm just different. It's just what it is. And I'm the only one dealing with this. And as, my basketball career started progressing, I started meeting a lot of people. And now people are looking up to me for answers. Like, how do you do it? Like, I'm like, bro, I'm like still struggling with it. But I'm just starting to see all these people looking at me, and it's like, man, like I could be inspirational to them because I'm following my dream, and I didn't let alopecia hold me back. That's why I'm a firm believer, and I've always said this. Once I finally accepted it, is make sure you have alopecia and alopecia doesn't have you. Because I lived by that after I finally accepted it, and I was able to follow my dream. And and then it just came across so many different types of people, and it just become amazing, man. And then, in the league, when I got to the league, I had a program called Charlie's Angels where I met kids or parents who have alopecia. And they will come to the games, before the games, they get to watch me work out. I'll talk to them, take pictures, answer whatever questions. So, and then at that point, I felt like, when I first started early, I was like 20 years old, 21 years old. I was like, this is the reason why it happened to me. This was my purpose, is to help others. So I'm actually super blessed and thankful it happened to me because it made me who I am today.
Yeah, I mean, and over the years too, like, it's going on next year. I think it'll be 20 years since you first were introduced to the National Alopecia Areata Foundation, and we've joined forces since day one on raising awareness and also funds on what NAS's mission is. And there's a lot of things that align there. But it's crazy because you talked about Charlie's Angels, in this program we had when you were playing, where these kids would come during the pregame before the game was open to up to the public, and they'll get a sneak peek of you warming up. Then they get a chance to do a meet and greet, sign some autographs, take pictures, and talk and all that. But those little things that made a drastic difference and such an impact. And it's wild to think like somebody that you took a picture with that was 5 years old, 15 years later, they're now 20-year-old, and you can have a drink with them. Well, you gotta be 21, but you can have a drink with them.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see that sort of remarkable relationship that you've had with the alopecia community. And you're one that you're kind of like, you would be considered a success story. Like, you've accepted it. You've, dealt with these challenges, but not everyone has accepted it, right? And not everyone has.
To me, that's the most important part, is accepting it. Because once you accept it, your whole perspective of life changes, bro. Like, I feel like that time when I was struggling with it, it was some dark days. But
what do you mean dark days?
What I mean dark days, meaning being depressed, having anxiety. I didn't like new situations. I didn't like going to a new school. I know at the time we ended up moving from New Jersey to New York. I'm like, the thing that I'm thinking about is not like I'm like, oh man, these kids are gonna see me bald headed, bro. Like, that's that whole thing. It was just anxiety and struggling with it. Those were some dark days, man. And then crying by myself, or mental. I didn't know what I was going through until, like, as you get older, you're like, man, like, I was probably dealing with a lot of mental issues, mental health issues, and I didn't even know. But I was able, and thank God for basketball. And this is the kind of a message that I tell anyone, that for me it was basketball, but it could be anything anybody's passionate about. Focus your time on that. Because I'm telling you, like, for me, like, I just focused on basketball, and that kind of, took its course, and it took me to where I am today.
Yeah, and you can speak to this, Dr. John, but like, alopecia areata typically doesn't cause physical pain, but many people with the condition, it causes emotional distress and physiological pain as well. And I'm curious if you can share kind of your story a little bit more in terms of how it defined you, but it's something like you're on the opposite side, right? Because Charlie already accepted it. You're now trying to find a treatment and trying to find maybe a cure, like trying to cope through like this.
Yeah, like, I got it when I was younger. I mean, he's an adult. Like, all his life, he's one way. All of a sudden, boom, you start seeing changes.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Because you've been this way for 33 years, 34 years, whatnot. And typically the research shows that you see it towards like the later part of like 30s and early 40s is typically when it starts coming up too. In my case, like these cases, like bald patches. Yeah, I mean, it looks like Charlie focused his energy on basketball. He focused on it and obviously became successful. How I divert my attention and what I do now is trying to figure out what the genetic predispositions for alopecia areata really are, and can we tackle these ahead of time, right? If we did a test, can we see, oh, you're more prone to get it, or this substance is more prone to get it. So I spend most of my time trying to do research on what's being done out there. How can we further along this mission, right? Because alopecia areata only affects 2% of the population. And I think you said this earlier, it's been around forever, but nobody's really come around to getting a treatment for it because it only affects 2% of the population. So for Big Pharma or anybody to really get involved, it's not really a good return on their money, right? So, but when you go through it personally, it's like, like, this is what I do all day. I got to figure out a better solution, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's how my energy.
Earlier too, you said something about when you first was diagnosed, that you had a treatment, or you did a treatment and it grew back. Can you talk a little bit about what that treatment was?
Yeah. So typically for alopecia areata, is like in my case, for example, it's caused by your immune cells attacking the hair follicle. So what you can do is try and mitigate like inflammation at that site. So even in kids, when they have these patches come up, safest way to do it is topical corticosteroids, right? So that's That's one of the things you can do. Sometimes using minoxidil, which is over-the-counter Rogaine, that seems to help a little bit. You can do intracortical steroids by going to a doctor that can inject steroids in the patchy area, and that can help.
I've been there.
You've done,
Yeah.
so there's all these treatments like that are out there, but nothing's really like approved for it. And what I did was I looked at my genetics and tried to figure out which one of these drugs is going to work best for me, right? That's what I was looking at. And for me specifically, it seemed like triamcinolone was a good corticosteroid that would work for me based on my genetics. So I had that in my formula. And then latanoprost was another drug. It's a prostaglandin analog. And typically, I don't know if I shared this with you guys. For example, there's a drug on the market called Latisse, and that's bimatoprost. And that's been FDA approved and used for eyelashes for a very long time, for extending your eyelashes. How they discovered that drug is by this eye drop called latanoprost, which is actually used for intraocular pressure. It's a drug used for eye issues, basically. And what they saw that one of the biggest side effects of this eye drop medication was that people who were using it were getting longer and beautiful eyelashes, thicker, longer eyelashes. So the pharmacy industry went down that pathway, used that chemical to create the drug Latisse, which has been used for years now in the market, and it's off patent. It's called bimatoprost. So I looked at my genetics and saw that that kind of drug would be really good and beneficial for me. So I put that in my formula. So now I could make both of these drugs together in a cream or a foam, because I can make drugs, right? That's what we do. And I used it, and I was able to get hair growth back in about 2 to 3 months. And that's how I've been with my Areata that pops up. And what this has helped me do, honestly, personally, is that one of the biggest scary parts of alopecia areata, especially now that I've had 3 or 4 bouts of it, is that you never know when it's coming. Like, it just randomly happens. I had the beard first, then I got in the hair, and now I still have it. But having some kind of solution in your back pocket gives you some confidence that, okay, if it does pop up on the back of my head tomorrow, I at least have something to lean on, right? So that's the beauty of having some kind of personalized treatment plan to go. So it gives me more confidence daily that I'm not waking up next day thinking, oh, when is my next patch going to happen? Or I'm not going through my hair looking for my next patch. So that's one of the positive factors.
Yeah, and for those that have just joined us, we're having a casual alopecia talk on this Alopecia Awareness Day. It's Alopecia All-Star Awareness Day, which is a campaign, and the theme for this month. This month is Alopecia Awareness Month, and we've been working with the organization, nonprofit organization, the National Alopecia Areata Foundation, to create awareness, but also funding to support the research to not only provide support for the community, but also in that quest to find a cure. And Charlie, as a matter of fact, if you can, put the website, alopeciaallstars.com.
Mine, bro.
You read my mind?
As soon as you started talking, I started typing. I already knew where you was going with it. But
10 steps ahead of me. All right.
Yeah,
all right. So good energy. That means there's good energy happening here. Yeah. So alopeciaallstars.com. Alopeciaallstars.com is the website where you can contribute and you can help. And it goes a tremendous day. You know, Charlie mentions that in one of the recent videos when he made the announcement, it was like every dollar does count and every dollar does matter. So I know we're over our time by 5 minutes, and I appreciate you guys giving us a few more minutes here to continue this conversation because it's really good. And we want to save the questions to the end. But I wanted to talk about, like, you mentioned, Dr. John, you mentioned like finding a solution, right? And different, like Charlie used basketball, and now it's his sort of creative outlet. But like, there's one thing to help you, like finding something, whether it's artistic, music, family, a support group. That's like one thing. But then, like, in terms of solution wise, like, what has this FDA treatment that has been approved, is there data that shows that there is a high success rate in curing alopecia? Is it a cure, or does it like slow it down? Like, explain that a little bit, because I'm a little confused in terms of what the answer is. Because when I ask people, is there a cure for alopecia? Everyone says no, but then there's this FDA approved medicine that can either help you get it back, but it could potentially come back later. Like, what's going on there?
Exactly. So, and that's something that still need to be researched further along, right? So, what I usually tell people, and this is the same for male pattern baldness or female pattern baldness, right? Androgenic, or whichever case, your genetics predispose you to lose hair. And that's going to be happening. Whatever chemical reactions are happening in your body, that's going to keep on happening regardless. What you can do is stop those messengers from working, right, that are causing the hair loss by working on that side of action, or do things to promote hair growth along with that. So it's not necessarily like a cure. You take it for like 6 months and you won't have to worry about it ever again, because your body's going to take over when you stop the medication, and you're going to continue to lose hair once you stop. In the case of, I have to dive into the Illuminate studies, but what people who used it, I think it was 24 or 36 weeks, 24, 36 weeks, they saw significant hair growth back. And I think you have to stay on the drug to keep hair growing. Otherwise, what happens is once you stop it, your body goes back to recognizing those hair follicles again, and goes, attacks them and kills them. Because it is a suppressant, so it's suppressing your immune system from doing what it's doing, right? So
when you suppress your immune system, I'm no doctor, but this is what. But when you suppress your immune system, you're more susceptible to other conditions, right? Or
yeah,
to other diseases.
Exactly, and that's what I was saying earlier. You got to weigh out the pros and cons. And one thing I've learned and loved about this community is that there's nothing wrong with being an alopecian, right? I like the word alopecian now because it's a cool word, and we're building the community around it. There's nothing wrong with it, right? It's getting acceptance and being okay with it. That's something I've learned. It's okay to have the issue and live with it. You don't necessarily have to try to cure it. So that's been really cool to see.
Yeah, so somebody mentioned in the comments, so you're basically picking your poison.
Yeah, it's the pros and cons. Yeah, what are you willing to live with? Because then when you start taking an immunosuppressant, like, you're more susceptible to outside infections, like traveling becomes a problem. With COVID nowadays, there's a lot of issues that come along with immunosuppressants that isn't worth it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's tons of resources, like we can talk for hours, especially on the medical side of things. Like, if you actually Google alopecia mental health, you can find, I think it's the second or third link, that you can find naf.org, and there's a section there on the bottom that talks about the resources so you can manage this emotional wellness, whether it's depression or other anxieties that you might be experiencing, from support groups that they offer in different cities to peers and mentors, also phone support. The National Alopecia Areata Foundation also has an annual conference, which we were part of back in a few months ago in Washington, D.C. And there's a few other ones that are mental health resources, from finding therapists, finding a therapist, or getting immediate help. But that's actually one of the things too that Charlie and I, especially with life after basketball, now that he's retired, he's working full time as a real estate investor and a developer. Him and his wife are in the space, and I remember a few years after his retirement, like, we missed those days of the Charlie's Angels, which is like meeting the kids during the games and having that one-on-one connection, because it felt like we were making a difference, that positive impact. And I remember sitting a few years ago back, actually, no, I'm sorry, not a few years ago, it was last year, after the pandemic hit and everyone was home trying to figure out life, we was like, what can we do for the alopecia community that could continue to have a mark and a positive impact like it was when you were playing. You don't have this big stage, and you don't have the sort of eyeballs like you may have had by playing on basketball every other day on national television, but like, you're still a voice, and your voice matters, and also everyone else's voices matters. And it's like, how can we do, what can we do, and how can we make a difference here? And aside from all the other resources that I just mentioned, we wanted to do something that was more appealing, especially for some of the younger folks. And we came up with the idea of the Alopecians. And the Alopecians is just think of Disney and think of X-Men, where you have these superheroes with these characters and they have a storyline. And we partnered up with an animation studio that focuses mostly on Japanese anime. And we started working on this. We started working on these characters. And like, I'm a techie guy, and I'm very forward thinking when it comes to innovation. And at the same time that was happening, you hear about all these new digital collectibles that were popping up, the NFTs, and what was happening with Web3. And I was like, how do we dabble into here and start applying technology into what we're doing? So we're working on an NFT collection that's also called the Alopecians. And then as we were building, and Charlie, you can jump in here too and add, but like, you remember, like we were building and like the space moves so fast. We're like, we're doing all this, but it's like the communities, there's pockets all over. There's people that you see, at least online, you see people that have alopecia on Facebook groups. You see groups that the NAF also supports. There's a website, shout out to my friends over at alopeciaworld.com. And there are a number of other ones worldwide. And we're like, all right, everything seems like over here. How can we like centralize and unify all these communities in one place where it's driven by connections, support, but also education? So we came up with the alopecia community, like just the way it sounds, alopecia.community. So we're excited because we're working on an online platform, and we're like, in order for us to cultivate this space, we got to build it, and then we can introduce the brand Alopecians. But Charlie, I'd like if you can speak a little bit more on that, because like, what was the motivation behind that? And I know you and I know the answer, but it's like, and so does Jobby, but like, I want to get your take on why you've now dedicated pretty much the rest of your life to building what's going to be an innovative space in the game.
Yeah, I mean, alopecia is a part of me, right? It's made me who I am today. Even though I don't have that platform as playing in the NBA anymore, in front of, like you said, thousands and thousands of people and being on national TV and this, that, and the third. But I'm still living with alopecia. So, and I still get a lot of people reaching out to me about alopecia. They have their son, their daughter, somebody's going through it in their family, and they're looking for some type of support. And that's the beauty about alopecia, right? Is you have different options. If you, like for me, I accepted it, and I'm perfectly fine with the way I look, perfectly comfortable. I don't need to, if they have a cure for it, I won't do it because I'm comfortable with. But some people might not feel like I do, right? Some people might want a cure, might want their hair back. So
most people, you can argue that most people
right?
want their hair back.
So there's different options, right? So I just wanted to kind of make alopecia dope. You know what I mean? Make alopecia, educate people about alopecia. Because there's a lot of, the time that I was diagnosed and I was experiencing, social media wasn't really around. So now with social media being around and bullying, not too long ago, I don't know if you guys heard of a story. It was a young girl named Rio, but she ended up committing suicide because she was being bullied.
She was a 12-year-old girl.
12-year-old, and was being bullied by having this condition. So, again, it's just me letting my voice be heard, trying to educate. This is my purpose. I stand by this community, and we've been working on so many stuff, man. We got a documentary. We finally got that finished. I'm excited to finally put that out so you guys can see. We're working on, an NFT project. We're working on animation. There's so many things that we're working on. But like you said earlier, the community, building that community, it's important. And little by little, gradually, we'll start introducing these things that we got going on. But I'm super. It's like I have alopecia. It's not going nowhere.
Yeah.
So I'm committed to this 100%, and excited to see what the future holds.
Yeah, it's like the largest misconception about the disease is that it just affects your individual hair, when in fact it has a much wider physiological and physical impact, and it's an ongoing journey. You know, you guys are both living it every day, and I can argue with me losing my hair already that I'm not too far from male pattern baldness because it's just hair loss, and most people will be like, well, it's just hair loss, but it's more than that. And for those that may not, for those that either that have accepted it or may not accepted it, like to be able to create a central hub that welcomes all, you know, regardless of where you came from, regardless of how old are you, regardless of the stage of alopecia that you might be experiencing. And there's a place where you can hold conversations and your voice can be heard. And also too, you know, we're building a media and entertainment company. So to see more products out there that are more inclusive to this community, like
let me ask something, Rob. So I give, because you just reminded me of something. So I went to a National Alopecia Areata Foundation a conference in Washington D.C. not too long ago, maybe a few months back, and it was the first one since COVID, and it's just a bunch of people with alopecia from different parts of the world come meet in this one place, and I was a part of that. And I remember going into one of the kids' room, and you know they had coloring books. You know, it was like they were like maybe like 5, 6, 7-year-old kids that coloring books. You have a couple of different materials, and I'm looking at the material and it was just of kids playing around, but they all had hair. There was no material out there that the kid could connect with, as far as, well, that person looked just like me. So that's what kind of sparked the movement of creating this intellectual property that we're doing, because like it should be, to me, in my opinion, it should be a bald-headed kid, somebody that looks like them.
Yeah, representation. And that was what I was getting at, is having more not only resources, but being able to see products and brands, whether it's merch that looks like me, feel like me, and like can connect and makes it more relatable, 100%. And I think that helps with the psychological pathway.
That's a t-shirt.
Oh yeah. I'm wearing one. This is something
you said it looks like me, feels like me, whatever. That's a quote. That's a t-shirt.
Yeah, and it's a t-shirt that I'm wearing because I actually designed this for the alopecians, if you can see on the side here. And it was I'm me being the techie guy. This is like the futuristic alopecians here. But it's something in honestly that when you think about the digital footprint of what exists right now on the internet, a lot of these big tech companies have programs and have departments in place to help alleviate a lot of the bullying that happens online, cyberbullying, and it's a mission. And I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that, because that's one of our primary missions, to help create more conversations, create more avenues that not only allow more people to be open about their alopecia, but also to fight what's happening in these nasty, dirty places that live on Twitter. There's people on Twitter that have these Twitter fingers that can easily go make a joke and make a meme about something. And Charlie, you experience it to this day. You still experience it. Yeah. You grown ass man, and you're still having to deal with these knuckleheads.
I'm still dealing with this.
Yeah. So point, guys. So I'm a recent alopecian, right? Last 2-3 years. And one of the things I found was that when you go online to find more research or support groups, there's not a good community for this that's out there, like threads where you can read, how people are dealing with these experiences, or where do I go for a good solution. Besides, NAF has a good one, but there's not one for the majority of the population for people suffering hair loss across, right? Just Areata is its own thing, but where's the support group for male pattern baldness? Where's the support group for female pattern baldness? We've just accepted that this is life. So getting a community that people can go to, especially young kids, trying to figure out what is going on with them is a great idea, and that's why we're here to support it.
Yeah, so somebody made a comment on the chat here saying that there's always going to be mean people, and you're right. There's always going to be mean people, but that doesn't mean you can't create structure for better safe havens.
Rachel, that's Connor's mom.
Oh yeah, I said that.
I just did a video for Connor.
Oh yeah, you're right. There's always going to be mean people out there, but that's why like with these platforms that exist, the big tech companies, and also with what we're building, you can create structure to eliminate that and kill that void.
Let me add this. So I think with alopecia too, man, having a great support system is important. Or building this support system, having people around you that's been through it, kind of guide you. Is definitely important. But then you have the other side of it, because you have the people that are looking for answers or looking for options. And Jobby, I want you to talk about, Nimbus. What is Nimbus, right? What is it? I mean, you tell me, what is it? Because I see the big logo on the back. So kind of,
yeah.
What is it?
We talked about how we channeled our energies when we first had alopecia, right? You focus on basketball. Mine was trying to find a solution that fit for me. And that's what led to me starting Nimbus Healthcare. And what we do is we look at genetics specifically for hair loss and try to fit and see what treatment plan would work best for you. And that's what I was talking about, how my whole experience was. So we're doing more research on, I saw somebody ask a question, why is this happening to my child, or what's the cause, right? We're trying to help further along that whole investigation by treating people and seeing what the results are like, right? Like I said, 2% of the population, Big Pharma hasn't really moved, and even when they moved, it was an immunosuppressant, right? And not any other solutions to see if something that exists out there already works. I don't know if you guys saw, like, minoxidil orally taken. New York Times wrote a big article about this recently. Minoxidil orally taken. Minoxidil has been around for a long time. And that's Rogaine over the counter, minoxidil, that's the drug. Sorry if I was speaking medical jargon, but minoxidil orally taken was a blood pressure medicine. And now at lower doses is showing that significant hair growth is happening. So there's a lot of new things that are coming about. And there's this also this new spotlight on hair loss or alopecia with COVID. COVID-induced hair loss. So more people, and this is a whole different subject in which we can have another conversation, Rob, for another day on COVID-induced hair loss and what people are doing about it. And Areata getting turned on by having COVID. So there's that conversation that's happening and more research happening in that realm of things as well. But yeah, Nimbus, what we do is try to provide solutions for hair loss based on genetics.
Yeah. No, that's super dope. And I know we're running out of time here, and so we're going to get to the questions. But, one thing I wanted to mention is our purpose here, with the practice that you have, Dr. Jobby and Charlie, what you and I and the rest of the team are building, our purpose, like, and it's almost like it's evolving as we're having this conversation, because, like, we want to change the emphasis from losing hair to growing confidence and building self-awareness while providing support and just the essence of what makes a difference and what can make you stronger. And I don't know if you guys are aware of the self-concept model. You guys are aware of self-confidence? So self-confidence is an idea of the self constructed from the beliefs that one holds about oneself. So it's basically broken up into three components, which is self-image, self-esteem, and the ideal self. And it embodies who I am. And that right there alone, the model self-concept is what we're leading with, to help define who I am and not let someone else or let something else narrate that. But with that, we'll wrap up. And Charlie, I don't know if you can check the question box, see if the good old Dr. Jobby might answer some medical questions or.
And this is more to you, Doc. It says, do you like the Rogaine men's formula?
Yeah, minoxidil, Yeah, minoxidil is the true and tried thing that's been out on the market for a very long time. You know, one of the things we look, so this is a good example of one of the things we do at Nimbus. So minoxidil works for some people and doesn't work for some people. That's why the jury's still been out there on a long time. A lot of people use minoxidil and it works really well for them. One of the genes we look at in our genetic analysis is SALT1A1. So here's a tidbit. For those who don't know what prodrugs are basically drugs that need to be metabolized, like from drug A to drug B. And drug B is what actually does whatever it needs to do in the body, right? So minoxidil is one of those drugs. Minoxidil is a prodrug. Minoxidil needs to be converted into minoxidil sulfate to actually work. And there's an enzyme that causes that reaction from minoxidil and minoxidil sulfate. And say your body doesn't make enough of that enzyme for that pathway to happen, then guess what? Minoxidil is not going to work for you as well, because it needs to be minoxidil sulfate to actually do what it needs to do. Say your body's not making enough of it, like at half a percentage, then you need to probably apply it more often or more or at a higher dose to get the same efficacy that a normal person would, right? So we look at the SALT1A1 gene to see how efficacious minoxidil will be for you. So that's one of the examples of how we tailor prescription plans for people. But the answer to that question is, if you're just trying to try something out and want to do it, it's over the counter, not a prescription. It's cheap, like $10. Go get it, try it. It won't hurt you, right? That's the best thing. You know, there's always pros and cons, and everything I always tell patients is pros and cons. The cons on that are very limited. So definitely try it.
Is there another question there, Charlie, that you want to share?
It said, this is, I think, more dedicated to me. Did you do injections in your head? Seems more torturous to a child than meaningful. So, did I do injections?
Can you repeat the question?
So the question is basically, did you do injections in your head? So, yes, I did. I was about 11 years old. Well, first of all, it was extremely expensive at the time. And my mom gathered as much money as she could to take me to the doctor because she wanted me to grow my hair back. And sometimes, as parents, we want to protect our kids, and we trying to find the answer right away. But it started becoming her journey instead of my journey. And then I started seeing this, like my mom struggling with it and being upset that I had alopecia, that I started hiding my feelings because I didn't want her to see me down, because I didn't want her to feel upset. So, but so going back to the question, yeah, so I did do it, and my hair did grow back, but it ended up falling off again. So I went to maybe 2 or 3 sessions, and I had some injections in it was extremely painful. It was super painful. So I probably had 50 shots on my scalp, and just in this one area, then have another 15 or 20 shots on each eyebrow. And it grew back. But again, it fell off again after a little bit. So, that's when I threw in the towel. I was like, I'm not dealing with this again. You know, if it's not going to grow, that's it. I throw.
That's typically that's what I was talking about earlier, Charlie, right? Our bodies are made a certain way. You're going to lose hair. You can do treatments, and all the treatments that are on the market right now are going to stop whatever it was, that whole cascade of events happening to you losing hair. So that's why when you were doing it sessions-wise, hair was there and it was growing, but when you stopped it, it started falling off. It's just picking your poison, as somebody said in the comments section earlier, is what's the pros and cons and what do you want to do? And hopefully as time evolves, there'll be better solutions that come up. For the pediatrics kids, instead of doing the shots, there's a lot of very potent topical corticosteroids that are available now. So that's good. When I say topical corticosteroid, I'm talking about a lotion or a cream that's a steroid that you don't have to inject. So try using those on the patches. Talk to your doctor about that and see if that's a possibility, instead of doing the shots, which is kind of traumatic for a kid to go through.
Right.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, we're 30 minutes already over our scheduled time, and I'm sure the listeners might have more questions. But honestly, if you can shoot myself, Charlie, or probably Dr. Joey will be your best bet since he'll have the real medical, scientific responses. Feel free to DM him. Dr. Joby, how can they find you?
Best way is probably to just email at support@nimbushealthcare.com, and we'll
Can you
have
repeat that one more time?
support@nimbushealthcare.com.
Support at
Healthcare.com.
nimbushealthcare.com. Put that in the comment if you can.
Yeah, put that on the
Charlie.
comment. Kenny. All right, Joby, can you put it and I can probably pin it?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, and remember, it's Alopecia Awareness Month, the whole month of September. If you guys go visit alopeciaallstars.com. It's in association with NAF, and it's in benefit for fundraising and continue to create support for this community. And we're excited that next month we're going to be launching alopecia.community, www.alopecia.community. You can actually visit it right now and share your email along with the alopecians.com. And share your email. They're going to work they're going to be launching in parallel. So the alopecians.com and alopecia.community. One's a media entertainment company and the other one's a social community platform. But yeah, this is exciting. We're super hype, and I thank you both for your time. Happy Alopecia Day.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Doc, man. This was amazing, and I think the alopecia community would definitely appreciate it. We got to continue to have conversations like this, man. This was beautiful, and hopefully, we can keep it rocking and rolling.
Yeah, this will be the first of many. I would hope so.
For sure.
All right, close it off with your slogan.
Make sure you have alopecia, and alopecia doesn't have you.
Yes, sir. I see ya.
All right, thanks. Bye.